Good morning, good afternoon, depending on the time zone that you're in. Thank you so much for choosing to attend my webinar today. My name is Lynne Wellish, and at the end of this session, I know that you are going to be able to speak with confidence when you're talking to your audiovisual provider. I'm going to introduce you to the names of 3 pieces of gear or audiovisual equipment, and I'm going to challenge you to make sure that you integrate these things, because I know that you are working on a meeting or an event right now, and using these tools and tricks that I teach you are going to help you create a more engaging experience for your participants. So perhaps you got your start like I did. I got my start in audiovisual when I was a catering manager at the Hyatt Regency Phoenix. I learned something very important, and perhaps you know this too. I learned if you have 2 microphones, you need to have a mixer. Something that brings those things together and mixes it so it can come out for the audience to hear. But if you know what this is, this session is not for you. This is called an Encore barcode system. This is a very important piece of gear. You're never going to need to know what it is or the name of it, but what it does is really important. And so what this piece of equipment does is it takes all your inputs, your graphic images, it takes your pre-recorded videos, your pre-recorded sound, your live videos, your live sound, puts them all in this machine so they can go out to create a flawless experience for your participants. Seamless and flawless. Again, this is a session for people that are just learning about audiovisual and the nuts and bolts of it. If you've ever been to this website, again, I tell you, this session is not for you. This is the Encore website. Maybe you've been to the Sennheiser website or the JBL website. If you're a true gearhead, I'm going to talk to meeting planners, professionals today, and event professionals on how to be comfortable speaking about audiovisual and all the elements that are included. If you don't know what's wrong with this picture, then please stay. Do you remember back to the time of banquet land? Maybe you were a server, or maybe you worked in a restaurant putting yourself through school, and we learned an important thing. There's an ingress door and an egress door, right? You always enter through one door, normally it's the door on the right, and then you come out on the left side normally. Well, I have to give kudos to this AV technician. Look how he re-engineered this. He was clever enough to know to take down that cord so no one would trip on it. But perhaps you work at a venue like this, or you've worked at a venue like this, where they make you go up and over the doorways. We call that up and over. And if you're not aware of it, please check it out the next time you're doing the site visit. And so that's taped down with, usually it's called gas tape. If you think this is going to happen to you, you are not alone. Now, all these pictures were taken by a friend of mine on different sites for shows, or else they were sent to him. I can tell you, in all my years of doing audiovisual, I've never had anything like this happen to me, nor have I heard of anyone that's had it happen to them. But as you can tell from the photograph, it's more than an urban legend. Perhaps you think this is kicking it up a notch, then this session is definitely for you. I absolutely love this stage set and felt compelled to share it with you this fine day. If you look over to the left, you'll see what looks like a bunch of musical instruments to the left of the lectern, and then you'll see drape. That black drape is called duvetine. If you look to the right of the lectern, you'll see microphones that are standing. Those microphones are called standing mics, and they have a wire attached to them. That wire means it's wired directly into the mixer. So a microphone can be wired into the mixer, or it can be wireless, which sends electrical impulses into that mixer. Those screens are gorgeous. Those panels, see them? There's 6 of them. They're on a metal frame with a spandex fabric. They're most likely attached with Velcro. And then look at that beautiful lighting. I love that pink glow. It's coming from behind, from above, and below. So again, if you think this is kicking it up a notch, this session is for you. Perhaps you can remember a time when you used a similar stage set for something that you were working on. Today I'm going to talk to you about audiovisual and teach you some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. We're going to talk about 3 types of equipment, and I'm going to encourage you to use them to enhance your meeting or an event. I guarantee you, I know you're working on something right now, and using this will make it a more memorable experience for your participants. We're going to evaluate the need for special effects to create an engaging experience for your participants. Think of special effects as the exclamation mark, the wow, the thing they need to remember. Then we're going to determine what elements are needed for an RFP for audiovisual, and we're going to learn to vet vendors to source and procure. Vetting vendors means research, and source and procure means shopping. And then we're going to learn to read an AV quote to be able to compare one to another. Excellent. Thanks so much. So these are the elements of audiovisual production. There's sound, light, projection, and special effects. You are bringing an audience together to communicate a message, and that message needs to be heard, seen, remembered, and embraced. So let me ask you this. Have you ever been at a concert or a play or a sporting event and you saw the most fabulous effect ever, and you said to yourself, wow, that is how I can introduce my CEO, bring in my committee chair, launch my new product, and you get so excited. You've hit the jackpot. And then you go talk to your audiovisual provider, and you feel like you're speaking a foreign language. You get a little frustrated. I'm here to tell you today, do not ever let someone out-tech you or intimidate you because they out-tech you. Here's what I suggest. Your audiovisual providers have a great source of wisdom and knowledge and experience. This is what I suggest that you do. I suggest that you say, Mr. Audiovisual Provider, thank you so much for your input. Please allow me the opportunity to explain to you what I'm envisioning. And then I'm confident together we can co-create that experience, and I know you'll know what gear to use to make it that experience that I'm envisioning in my head. So let me share with you about a client of mine. I'm based here in Phoenix, Arizona, and perhaps you had a client like this. We were at the beautiful JW Marriott Desert Ridge. And if you're not familiar with that property, please think of a property in your city that you like to work in where you can load it directly into the ballroom. So my client said to me, Lynne, I have a real challenge. I want to buy the best I can afford. However, my program kicks off at 8 in the morning, and I really need to get energy and excitement in my room. And this is what I'm envisioning. I believe through the use of sound, light, and images, I can create that. I am envisioning a full gospel choir coming out in their robes and singing to start my day. And so I did that. I sourced, I vetted, I researched, and I found a full gospel choir here in Phoenix, Arizona. It's true. I had them arrive at 7 for a start time at 8 and promised them breakfast. Well, 8 o'clock, they took the stage. They're standing on stage, and their robes are swaying back and forth, and they are talking about and they are singing about jubilation. It is a glorious day. And as they're singing and swaying, and the sound is raising, and the lights are spinning, and new images are flashing, and you can see some of the participants are actually coming to life. Maybe a few eyes are lifting, a few people are drinking coffee. Then they get into their second song, and they are singing, celebration, celebration, hallelujah, what a glorious day. And by now, I'd say about 80% of the people are at least acknowledging there's something happening and they're participating. In fact, some of them are swaying back and forth. And then the CEO walks out from behind the stage and he says, "Good morning, everyone." And through the sound and lights and images, he has the attention of about 90% of the people in the room. It's amazing to me. My client was so correct. And then the CEO grabbed a microphone and he started to sing with that choir. Hallelujah, hallelujah. It's a fabulous day to be alive. We're so lucky to be here in Phoenix, Arizona. And when they finished that song and my choir exited stage right, I feel the CEO and my client had achieved their goal. 92% of the people were awake. They were standing and they were singing. So remember, sound, lights, and projection are the tools that you need to craft the environment that you're trying to create. Is it going to be a general session? Is it going to be a learning environment? Is it going to be a workshop or a rave? As meeting and event planners, many times we have the perception that AV is an expense instead of added value. So again, I challenge you. Think of a meeting or an event that you're working on and ways that you can use these elements to kick it up a notch. Again, I'm taking any questions. So here's my first great tip. When you walk into a meeting venue or a meeting space, do you look around the room and say, "Wow, these walls are really ugly"? Or do you say, "Wow, we can really do a great event in here"? Do you want to embrace the space or surprise the eyes? Do you walk in and say, "Wow, these walls are really ugly. I need to create another focal point to divert everyone's attention"? You know, here in Phoenix, we have two fabulous venues that cater to country western parties. Rawhide is one and Corona Ranch is another. Perhaps there's a venue in your city that's indicative of the kind of event that you have, whether it's a Mardi Gras party or a surf party or a speakeasy. So generally, if you were going to be going to Corona Ranch or Rawhide, you'd want to embrace that country western Hispanic kind of feel. But I'm going to share with you something that my clients did. I was working on a charity gala, again, another beautiful resort here in the Valley of the Sun, the Phoenician. And this particular charity ball had been at that same hotel for about 5 years. My client, Beth, said, "Lynn, I really want to do something different. My mom had chaired this exact ball 30 years ago, and now it's my turn to leave my mark." So Beth and her committee, they draped the entire ballroom in purple bucoli draped. It was stunning. We uplit it from below and there were lights dancing off of it. And as people entered the room, you could see they were so surprised. Oh, wow, they had never seen anything so gorgeous in their life. So remember, your first thing, do you want to embrace the space or surprise the eyes? That's going to direct your next step. Let's talk about lighting. Again, I'm taking questions. Lighting illuminates the event. It makes you feel safe and secure. It focuses your eye on what you want people to see and what you don't want people to see. I'm going to share with you another story about a client of mine, and perhaps you work for a multi-level marketing company or a company that acknowledges top producers. And so my client was on stage under a big spotlight that was rigged from the ceiling. We're going to get to that in a minute. And it was shining down on him. And he was handing out those big, big foam core checks. And suddenly, standing next to the CEO, under his own spotlight, was Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley was on the stage with the CEO. Now, no one in the audience was able to see how Elvis got on the stage because it was dark. Our eyes are trained to follow the light. So Elvis and the CEO are talking, and then suddenly, from backstage, standing in Elvis' light are 4 showgirls, 4 dancing showgirls. Elvis grabs the microphone and he starts singing, 1 for the money and 2 for the shows, 3 to get ready, let's go, cat, go. And they went into their next song and their next song. and Elvis and the Showgirls did 4 songs. And nobody was thinking, where's the CEO? But suddenly, standing next to Elvis again, under that spotlight, was the CEO. But where did the Showgirls go? So Elvis and the CEO, they're talking, and then the really high top producers come out, and Elvis and the CEO are handing out those big foam core checks, 3, 4, 5 of them, and suddenly that spotlight goes dark, and Elvis has left the building. Light focuses on where you want your eye to see. Now, lights can be ground supported. This is called a light tree. Remember I showed you that black drape in that one pretty scene with the beautiful pink lights? That black duvetine I would use to cover the base of this. This is a light tree. You can set it on the stage or beside the stage, and your lights can be adjusted from there. This is called rigging. Rigging is when it's placed in the ceiling. It takes a very special skill set in order to rig from the ceiling. That silver bar that you see with the V's on it, that is called truss. Truss. Suspended from the truss, you're able to see lights and speakers. Those are mounted onto the truss. And you'll see the projector in front of that. So because everything is in front of the stage, that is called front projection. If it was behind the stage, that would be called rear projection. Now, perhaps you work in a venue where this is applicable. Do you see those little black strands holding the truss to the ceiling? Those are called hang points. Hang points. A good question to ask is how much weight does each hang point hold, and can they be adjusted in another direction? When something is front projection or rigged, it has a very clean line. But I'm going to teach you something right now, and whenever you hear the word rigging or rigged, in your mind, I need you to think 2 men, 4-hour minimum, $500 a hang point, or $2,500. Again, 2 men, 4-hour minimum, $500 a hang point, or $2,500. It takes a very, very specialized skill set in order to be a rigger. This is my final pitch. If you know what this is, it's time to leave my session. This is called a genie lift, and what it does is it lifts you up to reach that truss in the ceiling. It's a very safe way to do it. There's a gate that keeps you safe and secure. There's hand instruments to direct how the genie lift's going to go. Or if you're like me, perhaps you remember when we used to pin spot all the tables, right? And then that is what you would use a genie lift for. Some people call it a cherry picker. So this, again, is very creative, but it's not very safe. This is an improper use of equipment. That lift is lifting another genie lift. If I were to see that on my show site, I would immediately find the production supervisor. I would close the set, and I would have that genie lift brought down in a very safe manner with no one in the room. I can't tell you how many times it's important to use professionals, and you have to vet them and make sure that they're safe and secure. Perhaps this happened to you when you were starting out as a meeting or an event planner. You probably weren't very knowledgeable and didn't understand how to control your budget. Perhaps you were at that stage where you were just still saying, how much do things cost, instead of, this is how much I have to spend. And so perhaps what you did, as this client did, was you selected these lights. They're called Pars and Licos, and they are not as expensive as intelligent lighting, which we'll get to in a minute. The challenge is that each one of those needs to be hand mounted and adjusted by hand. The other challenge is this gentleman, this light technician, is not installing in a safe manner. He doesn't have any safety gear on, there's no net below him, and there's nothing attaching him to above. Again, if I were to see this gentleman in this unsafe environment, I would shut down the load-in, I would find the supervisor, and I would make sure this gentleman got down in a safe manner. I'm confident that large metal truss that you see, that's called light tower. I'm confident he's used to shimmying up and down that. But safety is everyone's job, and these are just a few things that you need to watch out for. This was called intelligent lighting. So intelligent lights are mounted to the truss, and they're intelligent. Once they're mounted, you can automatically adjust the direction that they come in, and you can program them for all kinds of great effects. In fact, if your budget is kind of tight, you can use this light show as part of your entertainment. This is called a ballyhoo. It's an infinity effect when the lights circle around the room. So usually they have this at sporting events, definitely here in Phoenix when you go to a Suns game or a basketball game. So it's an infinity pattern. So again, lights make you feel safe and secure. They tell your eye where to focus. They can be ground supported. They can be rigged from the ceiling. Intelligent lights can be used for part of your entertainment. Again, I'm taking any questions that you have, and that is lighting. Let's talk about sound. There's a couple of basic things about sound that are really important to know. The first important thing to know is that sound travels. And so what you need to use is called a delayed distribution system. Otherwise, you're going to have the echo, 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 echo. So sound travels. The other thing to know about sound is that your ear hears music and words differently. It's important to get a system with a loudspeaker that can distinguish between both and have it come out automatically so your ear can hear it correctly. There's a bunch of different microphones, and whoever uses them is the one that decides what kind's going to be used. But there's another important thing about a microphone. Some are omnidirectional. They pick up sound from all over. That is what you want to use when you're having music. You need to combine the sounds that you're hearing. If you've ever done anything and you've heard a musician say, a wedge, I need more bass in my wedge, they need to pick up the other sounds around them so theirs can be integrated as well. If you're having a speaker, you want to use what's called a unidirectional mic. They only pick up the sound from the person that's speaking. So we saw in that one picture, and I'll go back there in a second, there's mics that are wired into the mixer, and then there's microphones that are wireless. Sometimes you see them as a button or lapel mic. Sometimes they're a handheld microphone. From there, the microphone sends a signal to the mixer. The mixer modulates that sound. The amplifier takes that sound and amps it up and turns it into electrical waves. Those waves go out the sound speaker in a way that you can automatically hear it. Again, here's that great set that I talked about, and you can see those microphones are standing and they're wired into the mixer. Those are wired microphones. Or you can say, you speak into the microphone, it goes into the mixer where it's modulated, that sends it to the amplifier, and then from there, it goes out the loudspeaker so you can automatically hear it, the right sound. Now I'm going to tell you about Olga, and perhaps this happened to you or you know someone similar to Olga. Olga worked for a medical device company. She was fairly new at her job. She was bringing 250 people together in Tucson, Arizona to the beautiful Westin La Paloma. So if you've been to the Westin La Paloma, you know how gorgeous the view is from that pre-function space. Or if not, think about a great resort in the city that you're in that has spectacular views. Again, Olga was new to her job. not really sure how to speak to her boss, and not really confident in handling her budget. And so Olga embraced baby lamb chops for her opening reception, but she went with house sound in all her meeting spaces. So house sound are speakers that are in the room that are installed through the hotel. So what happened was no one could hear anything. It was very muffled. So can you imagine bringing 250 people together? You're bringing them together to communicate a message. The message has to be seen, heard, embraced, and remembered. So the next day, Olga had loudspeakers in all of her rooms. Speakers can be ground supported, just like lighting. If you have a tight budget, you can also use recorded sounds, maybe frogs, or you can use crickets or water running. I once did an event with Jim Lovell and Gene Kranz, the Apollo 13 astronauts, and we had the sound of a rocket ship taking off. It was excellent. Now, speakers can be rigged in the ceiling, and this is a delayed distribution system. But again, this is very scary, and maybe this has happened to you. Perhaps you have a younger group, perhaps they've had a little much to drink, and perhaps someone gets a little daring. So what I would say at this moment in time, I would say go ahead, have security come in, clear out the crowd, and have that gentleman come down safely. If your tech table looks like this at the end of the night, I would be a little scared. Again, it's really important to use professionals and ones that you vet. A little bit of beer spilled onto that console, that's a $30,000 piece of equipment. Not only would your party be over for the evening, but your event might not happen the next day. Here's my second great tip. If you record presenters for others to listen to later, you have to have permission of that presenter. I was doing another gala. I told you I love charity galas. And my director of development was leaving after 5 years. And they wanted to record the entire evening so they could watch it for next year. But the talent would not sign off. And so in the video, you see the chairwoman thanking the talent and introducing them, and then it goes blank. And then at the next stop, the chairwoman is thanking the talent for the great performance. Again, this is not ground supported or rigged. These are zip ties. Zip ties are to an audiovisual technician just like duct tape is to a hotel engineer. Okay, so I have a question here, and it said, what kind of microphone do you use with music? And that would be an omnidirectional mic. It is something that picks up sounds from everywhere. Let's see, my next question says, I'm just wondering, I noticed that safety of staff and quality of AV is a big thing in choosing AV suppliers. However, there's a lack of awareness in Asia. If I ever choose an AV production supplier for an event, what can the supplier prove to the meeting planner on the quality in ensuring the safety of staff and quality of event? That is a great question, and I'm going to cover that in a little bit. But I think the most important thing that you do is get references from other people that have used them and make sure that you call those references. But that's a great question, and I'm going to get to that again in a little bit. There's a whole section on it. Keep the questions coming. Let's talk about visual support. Oh, yes. So sound travels. Your ear hears music and sound differently. Sound can be ground supported or rigged. You can pre-record sounds, and if you have a tight budget, you can use it as part of your entertainment. So visual production is all about the throw. That's the distance between the projector lens and the screen that you're going to project it on. That light, how fast does that light travel? Now, there's many things you can project on, and perhaps you, like me, have projected on things too. I've projected on water, I've projected on fog, I've projected on walls, and one time I was doing a Western party in a ballroom, and we projected on the Western bar spaghetti Westerns with Clint Eastwood. It was fabulous. You need to determine how bright you want the image to be and how much you want people to see. Remember, those images are going to be consistent with the branding and messaging of your meeting and event. There's many types of multimedia considerations to think about. You can have pre-recorded music, pre-recorded videos, live music, live videos, and many kinds of graphics. And you're going to bring all of those together to create a very engaging experience for your participants. Still with me? So this, again, not very safe. I'm sure this audiovisual technician was so excited that he was able to re-engineer this using pieces that he had, since he didn't have all the pieces he needed. Remember, light, sound, projection, and special effects, they're like Legos. You can put them together in a myriad of ways to create and design the environment that you need. So this AV Tech has used strap-line tape on the back to secure this, and then rounds of tape to make it flat. Just to look at it, it's very, very unsafe. I was actually at an event where this happened. So see this projector? And they were using a professional company. See where the red is at the top and there's a little metal piece sticking out? That piece is the male. And beside that piece is another piece. Well, they couldn't find the correct piece. That piece should overlap with a female piece, creating a hole. So the male would go into the female and it would lock in place. Instead, very good at re-engineering, they put this together with strap-line tape. Strap-line tape. This is very scary too. When I just look at the weight of that screen, to me it's like nails on a chalkboard. I would be so afraid that somebody would slam a door or walk in or hit a table and everything would come tumbling down. What if your participants entered the meeting space through a fog screen? How cool would this be? This would transport them to another place and time. It would give you an opportunity to use your branding or your logo or your messaging for the event. Again, it's not very expensive, so I'm challenging you. I know you're working on an upcoming meeting or an event. What could you do to have such a fabulous transition for your participants? Have you ever used anything like that? Has anybody projected on something very cool that I haven't talked about? This is called IMAG, or image magnification, and I absolutely recommend this for groups over 200. When you use a cameraman to do IMAG, you also have the ability to record that as well. Now, you can use 2 or 3 different cameramans, so you're getting angles from everywhere. The only thing I want to caution you is that if your screen is over to the side and the cameraman gets the wrong angle, what you're seeing is the speaker, the infinity effect through vision. The speaker on the screen, the speaker on the screen, and the speaker on the screen. So make sure that you have the absolute right direction when you're using IMAG. Here's my third great tip. For multimedia presentations, you're going to want to create a very engaging experience for your participants. Use live images, recorded images, computer graphics, light, sound, projection, and special effects. Save yourself and be a hero. Make sure you have a technical director to call the show, and make sure that you include that in your RFP. Look at your quote to see if one's included. So a technical director is a very specific set of skills. They are aligning your sound, light, projection, and special effects all together to create a seamless experience for your participants. So I'm going to ask everyone to please close your eyes, and I'm going to do a little demo for you. Okay, breathe deep, close your eyes, let go. That felt great, didn't it? And 2, 3, 1, let's roll. Light cue 1, sound cue 1, projection cue 2, stage manager center right, CEO walking in, light on 3, sound on 4, CEO at the stage, sound mic on, over stage right, CEO wife walking in, stage manager, let's light cue 5, cue 6, sound cue 7, graphics cue 8, and let's roll. You can open your eyes now. All of that is happening behind the scenes as your participants are watching and embracing your production and your meeting. Again, you're bringing everyone together to communicate a message, and that message needs to be seen, heard, embraced, and remembered. That technical director, he's like a conductor conducting a symphony or an orchestra. He's weaving all your elements together to create a seamless experience for you. Special effects. So I challenge you. Any questions? Oh, do I have any questions about visual? Special effects. I love special effects, and I find that people are reluctant to use them. So let me ask you this. I'm going to share with you another client that I had, and this was at the Arizona Biltmore, and if you've never been to the Grand Ballroom at the Arizona Biltmore, please absolutely think about a hotel that you have, a nice resort that has a beautiful grassy area. And so my participants, they were out in this grassy area. We were doing a Route 66 party. Route 66, who doesn't dream about doing that drive? It came through Arizona. And so there was a truck with long neck beers on the back, and people were doing root beer floats, and we were doing burgers on the grill. And then suddenly on the stage jumped a Harley Davidson biker. He rummed up his engine, he pulled a Marlboro out from behind his ear, and he lit it. And as he lit it, fireworks went off behind the casitas. Fireworks went off. Everybody was so engaged. It was a 7, 9, 12-minute show, and then suddenly, on the stage jumped a female Harley biker with her braid, and she rummed her engine as well. They got off the stage, and they were followed by a pack of hogs. A pack of Harley Davidson bikers were following my male and female. And then suddenly, all my participants were following them like a Congo line as well. They went past the loading dock, past the trash, past human resources into another ballroom. And as they entered that ballroom, there were strobe lights and laser lights and low-lying fog and electric music and girls in dancing cages. And they had transitioned. So think about that whole 20 minute that they had to translate that audience, that transition, to take them from where they were into yet another event. So let me go through that with you again. Perhaps you're working on a meeting or event where you want to transition people from a dinner into a fabulous party afterwards. So they were out on the grass. It was a Route 66 party, drinking beers, root beer floats, and having burgers. Suddenly, a Harley Davidson biker jumped on the stage. He revved his engine, he pulled out a cigarette, and he lit it. Fireworks started from behind the casitas. Fireworks were going for a 7, 9, or 12-minute show. A female biker jumped on the stage as well with her braid. Together, they got off the stage and were followed by a pack of hogs. All my participants followed them as well. They went past the loading docks, past the trash, past human resources, and they entered another ballroom. They embraced another space where there were strobe lights and laser lights and low-lying fog and electric music. So think about something that you're working on where you'd like to have a transmission as well. I have a great question here. The price range for a fog screen, depending on who it is, can be anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000. And again, you can use it the whole day or through your whole event. That was a great question. Thanks. Perhaps you give something away every year at your meeting or event. I had a client who used to give a car away every year. Every year I would sit next to my AV tech. Every year we would hear that code word and that tech would press the button and I would still jump out of my seat. When you see streamers giving you height and flufferfetti coming down, it creates such energy and amazement in the room. Now, it's important when you're looking at your quote for your special effects that it includes installation, cleanup, and all your permits. Because a professional company using a confetti cannon like this would use what we call flufferfetti. See how big those pieces are? They're much, much easier to vacuum and clean up. So again, make sure your quote has all the permits, installation, and cleanup that you need. Flufferfetti is a great thing. Thanks for all those questions. Please keep them coming in. There's nothing I love more than a great question. Perhaps this is you. Perhaps you have great announcements by your CEO at your annual meeting or event. So I had another client, and they used to meet at the beautiful Fairmont Scottsdale Princess Hotel. If you've been to that venue, you can think about the Princess Ballroom. If not, think about some spectacular ballroom that you've worked at before. A ballroom where you can load directly into the ballroom. So my CEO would come out on stage and he would announce something spectacular. We opened our 613th store and all the balloons would come down from the ceiling. Remember, for a balloon drop, your balloons need to be filled with air and not helium. Every balloon was logoed. And then about 20 minutes later, he would announce something even more incredible. We hired a new CFO. We hired a new chief marketing officer. And again, the balloons would fall down, all with the company logo. Then about a half hour later, the CEO would announce, everyone in this room is going to be given a gift of $5,000 of company merchandise. And again, the balloons would fall, all with logos. And then from there, immediately, coffee break, because we needed to get in and clean up those balloons. So think about, is there some great news that you have or some great announcement? Is this going to fit into a meeting or an event that you have coming up? This is called a flogo. It's a floating logo. Imagine if your participants walked into the ballroom looking at a flogo. How great would that be? I'm encouraging you to think of fabulous ways to integrate everything together and come up with some unique ways to create an engaging experience. And this goes under great ideas, bad execution, and I know that this has happened to you. It's fun to do mirror balls, but the stress of that mirror ball has stressed the trust. I have another fabulous question. How does a flogo work? So it is helium that's put into soap bubbles. They're punched out and they're floated across the sky. That was a great question, Natalie. Thank you. This is the latest thing that I've seen. It's called a puffer sphere or puffer swish. It's put over the ballroom, and you can create live images, mirror images. You can go to your trade show floor and start talking to your exhibitors. Maybe you want to go backstage, talk to the speaker that's coming out or your talent that's coming out. Maybe you want to go live to Australia. So this is a great new thing. So the cost of flogos generally start, again, at about $1,500, And depending on who's doing them for you, they can go on up from there, probably to about the $3,500 range. Great, thanks. Keep those questions coming. I love questions. Now, this goes back to the question that I had previously, selecting a technical provider. So let me ask you this. Do you currently have a company that you use as your audiovisual technical provider? Do they come to you with your job, or did you help source them and procure them? My thought is the first thing you need to do is you need to go to your venue or your site, and you're walking into a room that's a blank slate. And in that room, you have to ask your hospitality sales professional, am I allowed to bring in my own audiovisual company, or do I need to use your in-house company? If you're allowed to bring in your own provider, then you need to ask, do you charge a liaison fee? The liaison fee is what they charge to have someone on site to go between you and your company. They're kind of like your personal concierge. They show you how the property works. Do they charge an energy or a power fee? I once had a client that had an elevator fee. So after you know the rules of engagement, the best place to start to look for an AV provider would be in your PCMA directory, right? I like to make a list of the members that are technical providers. Then from there, I have a group of 10 planners that we email each other everything, and I look for recommendations for them. I always send out about 10 RFPs because not everybody's going to get back to you, and you don't always want to use the lowest or the highest. The next thing that you want to do is to look at all your stakeholders that are involved in your meeting or event. You need to look at your floor plan and your spatial footprint. Make sure you've left room for your tech table, for your buffets, and that you've left room for anything else that might be happening. Now, everybody needs to have information communicated to them in a timely manner. And so what I suggest is that you open up a closed LinkedIn group, because I'm telling you, has this ever happened to you? You get back to your desk and suddenly there's 27 emails because somebody hit reply all, reply all, reply all. If you use a closed LinkedIn group, you can post information that's current. People can get to it at their own time. They can raise their concerns, and it's in a very, very private manner. And now you need to think about your show flow or your production schedule. Generally, the first people on site is your AV company. They pull up into the loading dock. I'm making it up, but usually it's about 8 a.m. and they unload their truck. They put in the truck, they get all their gear attached to it, they raise it up into the ceiling, and then the hotel comes in and puts in the stage, puts in the dance floor, puts in the rounds, then you put on your pretty tablecloths and your centerpieces. Now it's about 3 o'clock. Do you really need your florist there at 8 a.m., taking up valuable space in the loading dock or valuable space in your ballroom? Okay, so here's a few more questions that I have coming in. So balloon drops, again, they can range in price generally from about $1,500 on up. It depends on if you're having your balloons logoed or not, how many balloons you're gonna have in the drop, and if you're gonna, and I would keep the text there. The puffer sphere, the puffer fish is a round ball made out of, I don't want to call it a plastic, but it's kind of a plastic material. It's inflated and then it's hung from the ceiling and it can spin around. And you have different projectors that are set up and they're shooting images onto that puffer sphere. I hope I explained that correctly. We have our general session and expo in the same ballroom in the front and the back. What's a unique way to transition the general session to the expo? There's a couple of things you can do. You can get together a marching brass band from one to another. You can have cheerleaders do it. Maybe you want the expo part to go dark, and then you'll turn on a light with lots of live music and graphics to engage people to come that way. You know, there's always a great way to do things. You can even use, there's some indoor fireworks you can use, or perhaps you could shoot a confetti cannon into that expo area and turn on the lights, and then people can follow you in that way. I hope I answered your questions. So when I research technical providers, I use this form, and feel free to email me or email Caitlin. I'm so happy to share any of my information with anyone. On this form, it asks for the contact name, phone number, and then there's a place where you can jot the notes that you want to know. You know, sometimes you get a feeling. I once worked with someone, and he put WPF on the notes. So I went back and I said, WPF, he goes, oh yeah, when pigs fly. That guy did not know anything that he was talking about. Perfect. All right, thanks. Again, I'm taking more questions. I cannot stress the importance of using professionals. You can gear any questions to me at Lynne, L-Y-N-N-E, I'm E for excellent, at Lynne Wellish, LYNNEWELLISH.com, lynnewellish.com, or Caitlin, C. O'Malley, C-O-M-A-L-L-E-Y at pcma.org. Again, Caitlin O'Malley, C-O-M-A-L-L-E-Y at pcma.org. Here is my fourth great tip. Make sure you schedule sufficient time for installation to test the equipment, and make sure that you have time for rehearsals. I like about 8 hours, but most people like to get away with 2 or 3. Murphy's Law says if something bad can happen, it will. I'm Lynne Wellish. I believe in O'Toole's law. He thinks Murphy is an optimist. You always have to plan for the unplanned. That's the beauty about being a meeting or event planner. We test everything out, we make sure it works, and then when it doesn't, we come up with a plan B. So let's look at the information that you need for an RFP. And I say, why? We have a fabulous organization called the Events Industry Council. They put together the greatest minds in our industry. They created the Applied Practice Exchange. And right on that website is an RFP that has more details than you or I could ever think of. Trust me, I've tried. So I do what I do. I go to the website and I copy that template, and then I R&D. I research and duplicate. I make it my own. I try to make sure that it has everything I need in it. And that brings me to my fifth great tip. Any tool you'll ever need for planning any meeting or event is on Corbin Ball's website. And there it is, corbinball.com. He says on that website, please, please, please take anything off of here that you want. And if you make it better, send it back to me so other people can have it to use. All right, I have some more great questions. Do you find using the in-house provider more beneficial? Being an outside company, they know the property. Well, that is a great question, and that is truly what you would call a battle of the bands. There's many advantages to using an in-house company, but there's many advantages to bringing in your own audiovisual company. Many times you'll find that if you bring in your own, you'll have a lower price point, and you have a crew that's dedicated just for your show. You have to really look at your budget and see if the venue's going to be charging you a liaison fee or a power fee. And if you want, and this is from, and if you want to contact me, we can have this discussion offline. I certainly wouldn't want to make any enemies because everybody has a proper place and time for everything. How much time did you say was needed for installation and testing? What I like to have is 8 hours for rehearsal after the installation. There's many things that can go wrong during a load-in, and there's many things that can go right as well. I like to have 8 hours for testing, running my cues, having the talent on stage, having the speakers on stage, but some people only like to have 4. So look at your schedule and see what that allows. Great questions, thanks. Let's talk about, back to the question about an in-house provider. Is your quote item by item or by the bundle? So if your quote is item by item and you're a true planner like me, you want to get it down even though you've given them the truth about how much money you have to spend. You always should be honest and buy the best you can buy. So maybe you'll take down a light or a speaker, but maybe you really need that to create that experience for your attendees. I like to have a bundle where it says that it will produce this show. You need to look at if your equipment is ground supported or flown. If it's flown and it's rigged, that's going to give you, like I said before, rigged is 2 men, 4-hour minimum, $500 a hang point, or about $2,500. And then is it front projection? Is the projector from the front of the screen, or is it rear projection from behind? Front projection, if it's on a cart, it will be the same. But again, if it's rigged into the ceiling, that price is going to be a little higher. Most audiovisual equipment and gear, your speakers, your lights, all of that is going to be a 10 to 30% difference in price. What I'm going through now, these are the real items that are going to make a difference in your overall quote. They're going to say why one company is higher than another company. Are you charged rental for the equipment of the day of move-in? When you look and see, are they charging you every day that you're using that equipment? Are they charging you a weekly rate, or are they just charging you to use that equipment? Is there a truck rental fee included? I mean, what if they go to U-Haul and get one of those little trucks and you've got 4 of them? That could be $1,000 that you're paying just to bring your equipment to your show site. And is there a delivery fee or gas surcharge? Even if you're using in-house equipment, in-house audiovisual, not all the equipment that you need might be at that site or that venue that you're using. They might have to go to a warehouse to get everything, or to a sister property. Though the RFP website, if you just go to the eventindustrycouncil.com, right there, they will absolutely have, look under APEX, the Applied Industry Exchange, and you'll see RFPs for everything, definitions for everything. I teach at our community college, I teach event management, and I've had students who have found that website, and on their homework, they've quoted word for word. And I think that's great, because at this stage, it's not about knowing the information, it's knowing how to access the correct information. Thank you for all your emails and all your questions. There's also, this is a great point, and thank you for bringing it up. There also is a patch fee sometimes at a property, which is a liaison fee. And the patch fee is what they charge you so that you can patch into the sound system of the hotel. So again, that would be like a liaison fee, and you might need someone there from the in-house to do that for you. Advantages to using front projection versus rear projection. That is a great question. It used to be that front projection had a much cleaner line, and rear projection from behind the stage, you needed 50 feet from the wall to the screen. Now you can use what's called a short throw lens. And I know someone who says he can bring it down to 13 feet from the wall to the screen, but I think 17 is more correct. The other advantage to rear screen is you can stack a projector on top and have 2 projectors going at once. So in case a light bulb burns out, you don't have to stop your entire production to get your projector down and change the light bulb. So those are really good questions. And visually, the rear screen tends to have a cleaner, sharper image, the front screen, but rear screen is getting much better now. And if you want a copy of the slide deck, you can email me at Lynne, L-Y-N-N-E, at Lynne Wellish, L-Y-N-N-E, Wellish, W-E-L-L-I-S-H.com, or Caitlin. Excellent. So let's finish looking at our AV quote. Now this happened to me. I had a client who said, Lynn, your quote is more than double the least expensive quote. So I said to my client, I looked at your timeline and your meetings start at 8 and end at 4, and in the evenings you have something from 6 to 10. My crew needs to arrive at 7 and they would leave at 5, and I would need to bring another crew in for the evening, or I would just have a lot of double and overtime. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't hit you with that. So after the event, the client called me and said, I paid triple what the quote was from that client. So make sure the labor is the true labor. Make sure it includes the technical director. And finally, see if they charge you for pre-production or post-production. Are they charging you for work that they do before the event starts and for work that they do after your meeting and event starts? And again, remember to include your liaison fee, power charges, and your patch fee right into your totals. So this is the equipment that we've talked about today: sound, lights, projection, and special effects. I'm taking any other questions that you have. So I have a question that says, yes, you can absolutely negotiate your patch fee. You can negotiate your liaison fee. I have a question that says, do you agree with hotels that charge a patch fee when you're renting their audio equipment, and are patch fees for outside vendors to use house sound? Those are all great questions, and that needs to be part of your negotiation with the property that you were doing. So thank you so much for that. I've worked both ways. I once had a power fee. I was doing an event for MPI for a gala. I won't tell you what hotel it was, but my power fee for that night for the gala was $1,500. And all I could think about was, more than my mortgage payment, and is that enticing to have other meeting planners now come host events at your hotel? Any other questions or feedback from you? I'm answering any questions. I just love a good question. What are my thoughts about power drop and the fees? That is another good question. I think that when you work at a hotel, you need to maximize your revenue in as many ways as possible. There is labor that goes into doing a power drop, and so you have to look at that when you're looking at the bottom line. That might be a decision to not use a property. So the company that I used to work for, I ran into my old boss and she said, Lynn, I did a program in Florida. They charged me $2,000 for the power fee. We had a contract negotiated at a property in Scottsdale. They were going to charge me $30 for that same power fee with the liaison fee and all these drops. And so in the end, my client switched to another hotel. When you want to, so that is great. If you want to use a rear projection down to 17 feet, you use what's called a short throw lens. A short throw lens. Again, my friend says he can do it down to 13, but he is a pretty technical guy and I am not. So I would feel more comfortable with 17 feet. Can I go back one slide? Sure. So we have our speakers, our screens, our projectors. And again, I'm happy to send this deck to you. Lynne Wellish, Lynne, L-Y-N-N-E, at lynnewellish.com. Or you can do Caitlin, C. O'Malley at PCMA.com. Well, any other questions, thoughts, comments, or feedback? Again, my name is Lynne Wellish. I want to thank you so much for watching my webinar today. You had a lot of choices what to do in your hour, and I thank you for choosing me. Again, it's Lynne, L-Y-N-N-E, Lynne at Lynne Wellish, L-Y-N-N-E-W-E-L-L-I-S-H, lynnewellish.com, or you can do Caitlin C. O'Malley at PCMA.com. AV.com. One last question, should meeting planners trust hotel sales recommendation for AV suppliers? Wow, that is another great question too. If the hotel has in-house, they're most likely going to refer them, although not all of them do. I would always, always, always call past clients and vet my vendors. Thank you so much for attending my webinar. Have a great day, and I look forward to hearing from all of you soon. Thanks.